Hello, fellow conspiracy theorists across time and space. This is Joseph Armstrong. I appreciate what Gail Ripplinger did with New Age Bible versions. It's got a lot of really good research and exposes a lot of things that need to be exposed. But there's one molehill toward the end of the book that would be very easy to make a mountain out of, if you don't take it in its proper context. And that's what I'm going to be talking about in this video. So let's get into the video. Now, I realize making this video that there is a high potential that Gail Ripplinger or her family may end up watching this video, and I do appreciate New Age Bible versions and All of Thy Word, hazardous materials. And I do realize that for the sake of an almost 700-page book, it's going to be necessary to make some things shorter just for the sake of making the book less intimidating, so it will actually get read by somebody. Because there's not a lot of people that are going to sit down and read an 800-page book. She probably could have made this a 1,000-page book, like hazardous materials and in All of Thy Word. But you can't do that with all of your books, because then nobody's going to be introduced to what you're writing. I know with New Age Bible versions that has stood as an introduction to most of us King James Bible believers to what Gail Ripplinger has written, and we wanted to read in All of Thy Word and hazardous materials after reading New Age Bible versions. Would we have even started reading what she has if she had made this book 1,500 pages? Now, recently we've been working through a lot of the Ken Johnson books, and he does actually publish a copy of the Epistle of Barnabas, which is what Mrs. Ripplinger talks about on these pages. 636, this is of the new edition, to 637, so 2 pages. And I was like, I want to see what the Epistle of Barnabas says for myself. I don't want to assume that it's some kind of lost gospel or gnostic document just because it shows up in New Age Bible versions where a lot of these kind of things are being exposed. I know that it shouldn't be in our Bible, but does it contain anything of value to my understanding of early Christianity? I decided, let's see. So I listened through the entire thing online. I do not believe it was the translation by Lightfoot, but I did find the translation by Lightfoot online. I'll put that in the description below. And when I first read this in New Age Bible versions, I was like, whoa, that's bad. That's really bad. But there's ellipsis marks, but that's really bad. So I assumed that the Epistle of Barnabas was one of these Gnostic documents, written or inspired by devils. So here's what happens. Mrs. Ripplinger has a chart right here that says, 2 Corinthians 4:4 says, Satan is the god, small g, of this world. 1 Corinthians 8:5 tells us there be gods many and lords many. 1 Timothy 6:15 says Jesus Christ is Lord of Lords, capital L, small l. Satan can never be Lord, capital L. Now, when it comes to J.B. Lightfoot's translation, it seems like he doesn't really know how to capitalize things, at least not the way that we understand it. He may be writing in a different way, and it is sort of understandable where things might be capitalized, and I have no evidence that he is a Satanist or a Luciferian. It seems like from reading the chart that a lot of what the Epistle of Barnabas is being accused of saying is more likely to be J.B. Lightfoot than the actual text of Barnabas. He translates a lot of things in the very modern version-y sense, which makes sense. Now you see in the right-hand side of the chart that the Epistle of Barnabas says, Satan is Lord. And of course there's ellipsis marks in between Satan and is Lord. Those 3 little dots are very important sometimes, and when we as Bible believers, or anybody who sometimes has a hard time getting people to believe what they're saying, when we fill our quotations with ellipsis marks just to make things shorter, it does also detract from the inspiration that that quote can actually provoke. Basically, it decreases the instant feeling of credibility of what we're trying to say. Here's the actual 2 verses where Satan is Lord appears. I wrote that in the margin of my copy. This is comparing God and the devil on one hand and on the other. For on the one are stationed the light-giving angels of God, on the other the angels of Satan. And the one is the Lord from all eternity and unto all eternity, whereas the other is Lord of the season of iniquity that now is. Now, putting that in a little bit more context, later on in the Epistle of Barnabas, it says, Thou shalt utterly hate the evil one, capital E, capital O. That's verse 19:11. Sometimes the different translations have different verse numberings. It also says, later on, Let the wicked be always thy aversion. And that's from 14:22. Now, before we go taking Satan as Lord in the Epistle of Barnabas and comparing it to the Lord Satan of people like Aleister Crowley or Helena P. Blavatsky or people like this, let's actually read the ancient document that is attached to that quote and make sure we have our facts straight. I would actually recommend reading the Epistle of Barnabas. I wouldn't take it as scripture doctrine. It might not be 100% Bible all of the time, especially based on the translation that you end up picking up. But it is very interesting. It has a very interesting segment as to why Christians meet on Sunday, and a few other things that are just like, wow, this is what the early church taught. They were dealing with the same things we are today. This is pretty cool. Question of the day. Where have ellipsis marks posed you trouble? Have they shown up in a quote where you're reading in a book and you're just like, wow, look at all those ellipsis marks. I'm not sure if I can actually trust what this author is saying. I've got to go find this document myself. Is it in something that you wrote yourself where you're like, are you sitting there sweating bullets trying to keep this article or this booklet under a couple hundred pages and just trying to make a quote a little bit shorter? Is there anything you can do to remedy that? Like maybe putting a photograph of the actual quote online and providing a link to it so people can see what's going on for themselves. Where has this dilemma cropped up in your experience? I appreciate you guys a lot. Thank you for watching. If you're new here, consider subscribing. Hit the like button. That'll encourage me immensely. And if you'll share this video via your social media outlets, it'll help us grow and help us gain audience for these things that involve the conspiracy against our King James Bible. I'll be looking for your answer of the day down in the comment section, taking any questions or any comments that you might have. I will be checking all of those out. Thanks again for watching, and we will talk soon.